Hey, as somebody who spends a lot of time reading and talking about the Camino, I've read and heard Mony Dojeiji's name many times, and always in glowing terms, from people in the international pilgrim community. Mony lives in Ottawa, although she spends part of every year in Spain. She's active on many pilgrim forums and social media venues, so you may have seen her name too. She's a storyteller and an award-winning author. She's a true pilgrim in the best sense of the word. She's the author of 2 thought-provoking and inspiring books, which are now part of our organization's library, thanks to Mony. And she also has those books at the back, and you will be able to buy 1 or 2 if you're so inclined at the end of this session. And a chance to talk to Mony one-on-one. Mony's pilgrimages include having walked the Camino de Santiago, Camino Frances, by herself and writing about it, and also walking 5,000 kilometers from Rome to Jerusalem on a quest for peace and writing about it. Mony's passionate about understanding and helping others to understand how to create a life that's filled with meaning and purpose, and how to overcome our deepest fears. She is also, if I may say so, a perfectly delightful house guest. So please give Mony a warm welcome as she speaks to us and also with us about integrating the Camino pilgrim experience.
And of course, I have to give my thanks to my delightful hosts. This is my first time in Saskatoon, and I was told about how cold it is in Saskatoon, but then I left minus 25-degree weather in Ottawa. So this I don't think I went that far. So I'm very grateful to both Lee and to Dan for their very warm hospitality and the warm welcome, obviously, that I'm receiving here. It really is a great pleasure and a privilege to be among you, among fellow pilgrims. And today, I'm going to be sharing some thoughts around what for me it means to integrate your pilgrimage experience, and essentially what it means to be a pilgrim in your everyday life. As Lee mentioned, I'm a pilgrim who walked the Camino and also walked Rome to Jerusalem. This is, oh, there it goes. That was the map of where I walked. And what you'll see here are just pictures from my pilgrimages. I'm not going to talk to anyone. But I do want to point out some differences between the Camino and this Rome to Jerusalem pilgrimage that I embarked on. The first being there is no path. There is no path from Rome to Jerusalem. There are no albergues. There is no infrastructure to support the pilgrim in their journey. It's essentially walking on the side of the road every day. We didn't book anything in advance. We didn't make any plans because, quite frankly, we didn't know where we were going to be every single day. We didn't have GPS or any high-tech gear with us. I carried a very simple phone that I used for emergencies if I ever needed to make an emergency phone call. And we bought maps and cut out the parts that we didn't need to carry and used maps to plan out what our route was going to be every day and where we felt we could walk, staying off the very busy roads in Europe and only taking secondary roads. And probably the most distinctive aspect of this way of pilgrimage was that I had enough savings to be able to stay in hostels and, modest accommodations, but my walking partner didn't. And so he came up with this idea of, well, let's just do what pilgrims in the old days used to do, which is they would arrive in the town, they would knock on the door of the first church, monastery, convent, spiritual center that they found, and they would ask for shelter every single night. And would you believe that is essentially what we did? For the first 6 months until we arrived in Greece, we would arrive in town, and we would find the first anything that looked spiritual, and we would knock on the door. And once the nun or the priest or the individual got over the shock of these 2 individuals, with walking sticks, you'll see that shortly, that's me starting in Rome, knocking on their door, they were usually quite accommodating. They would open up whatever room they had, and we often slept on floors. We slept on tables. If we found sofas like this, we would be delighted, thrilled, because we could sleep on comfortable couches. And many people invited us into their homes, which makes this an even more incredible story, an incredible journey. of people opening their hearts to two pilgrims who were walking to Jerusalem for peace. So this was a journey that took 13 months to complete. I basically walked the Camino Frances in the summer of 2001, and in November I was in Rome walking this path. And I started the path alone, intending to finish alone, but the fates had other plans, and about 2 weeks in, Alberto, a pilgrim from Spain, would join me, and together we would end up walking to Jerusalem together, and we metaphorically still walk together because we are married and we have a child and we live in Ottawa. So this pilgrimage and the way that I walked was so radically different from the normal life that I was living back in Ottawa. I'm an Ottawa girl, educated there. I have an undergrad in science. I have an MBA. I worked in the corporate world, very much, inside of the box of what a normal life would be. And so I was out of Canada for 24 months, and I spent about 15 of those months walking on pilgrimage. Of course, I was a different person when I came back. I was not the same person. And I still didn't fully understand what had happened to me yet. But as soon as I came back to Ottawa with Alberto, everyone was delighted to see me, and they said, okay, well, you've got this nice adventure out of you now, it's out of your system, you've gone on this great quest, that's great. Now it's time to get back to normal, get yourself a normal job, go find a house, get settled, i.e. get back to the Mony that we know and the Mony that we can relate to. And the most kind of difficult part for me was that nobody really wanted to talk to me about what I had gone through. I see the nodding heads. Nobody wanted to see my pictures. Nobody wanted to ask about the experiences. Who did you meet? How did it change? Nobody wanted to have those conversations. And so I felt very much isolated, and I began to withdraw from my family, from my friends. But luckily I had Alberto with me, and he could help me. We could talk to each other about it. And gatherings like this are, I think, very important. The ability to be with other people who are like you, who understand you, and to share your feelings, to share your experiences. Those are an important element of beginning this journey of integrating your Camino and making it a part of your everyday life. And this outer integration and outer sharing, I feel, needs to go hand in hand with inner integration, inner work. Like I said, the pilgrimage had changed me. And I needed still time to unpack and to really understand what it had done to me. My values were now different. How I looked at the world was different. But I wanted to take what I felt was a great gift that this pilgrimage had given me, and I wanted to honor that gift by being able to share it and to be able to use it in my everyday life. So the first thing I needed to do was really make peace with all of those people in my life who simply could not share my enthusiasm and did not want to be a part of this journey that I was on. And I'm sure you realized, as I did, that it has nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with them. Because in the moment that you begin to talk about your journey and how it changed you and how it made you question things about your life, in the moment you do that, they can't unhear that. You've now opened a door. And that is a door that some people just simply cannot walk through. They're not ready to even peek behind that door. They're simply comfortable and happy to stay where they are, living the lives that they're living, not questioning anything about their life, even if their life is not making them happy. But that's okay. That's their life to live. But I understood that they weren't rejecting me. They were just afraid to open that door and really dive into the deeper experiences of what the pilgrimage was offering me. And so I can't change them, obviously. I wouldn't even try. I wouldn't recommend that anybody try to change anybody else. That's why for me, the work to be at peace was mine. It was mine and mine alone. And when I finish my quick conversation here, we will get into all of us sharing how we are each in our own way trying to be at peace with those people in our lives who maybe don't support us, and how we can take our collective experiences and lessons and use them to support one another. Now, some pilgrims believe or feel that the answer to the people who don't understand them here is to go back to the Camino. Go back to where people understood us and we felt safe, we felt secure, we felt understood. It's more than even a desire, because I speak to a lot of pilgrims. It's like a longing. It's like you see it in their eyes. I just can't wait. It's like a deep, deep, visceral longing to go back to the Camino. And I get that. I get that. Because I went and lived in Spain for 7 years. Because I just couldn't fit in. I couldn't find my place here. And so I went and lived where Alberto is from, and that's southern Spain, and we lived there for 7 years. But guess what? I'm back here. I'm back in Ottawa, and I'm still with the same people. So at some point, I had to make the decision of how was I going to relate with the other people. And also, what was it that I was really longing for? What am I really longing for? Am I longing for the path itself? The scenery, the food, the culture, all of that? Sure, it's a beautiful country, it's a beautiful path. But I think the deeper longing, what I really was looking for, was that sense of freedom, being free to just simply walk in simplicity every single day. No obligations, no responsibilities, no routine, no to-dos that kind of weigh you down every single day. I felt accepted. I was part of a community. I felt supported. We were all, didn't matter where we came from, socioeconomic, country, language, all of that in a way disappeared because we were all pilgrims. We were all pilgrims and we all had a common goal, and that is to get to the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. And so that was really what I was longing for. I wanted to bring that here. I didn't want to keep going back on pilgrimage to get that. I wanted to bring it here. And so how to do that? Well, like any good pilgrim who's about to embark on their journey, I began with my backpack, my symbolic backpack. And I thought, okay, well, in the same way I only put in the backpack those things that are going to help me and support me in my journey, well, I'm going to do that with the people and the relationships that are in my life. It sounds really harsh that I'm only going to have in my backpack or in my life those people who are supporting me. But think about it. How much effort and energy and time did you spend to find the lightest backpack? To find the lightest sleeping bag? If it could shave off a few grams, a few ounces, you went for it. You dedicated so much energy and time trying to get just the right equipment to help you walk with ease and with confidence and without suffering. If you spent that much time on that, isn't it worth investing a little bit of time to examine all of the relationships that are in your life that are really weighing you down? Like a too heavy backpack will weigh you down physically on your pilgrimage? And not just outer. I would take that to the inner realms as well, because we all know that the heaviest things that we carry in our lives are not physical, right? We all have the things in our lives that weigh us down. We have those thoughts, those rigid ideas, those beliefs, those inflexible things in us that we are just so unwilling to examine and look at. They're like rocks in that backpack. Our pains, our fears, our resentments, our rage, all of those emotions that are like acid, toxicity, that also slow us down in our life pilgrimage, all of it, metaphorically, is slowing you down. And so, I don't say these things lightly, because this is not like, oh yeah, just go and examine all the people and get rid of the people that are not serving you. But I feel pilgrimage, the Camino, gives you the opportunity to truly reflect on this fundamental question of, what is it in my life that is serving me? What is it in my life that is allowing me to walk feeling supported? And what is it in my life that is not, that I can make changes to? And these are not easy questions. There are no easy answers, because everybody's journey here, everyone's experiences is unique. But I feel the question has some merit. And it takes courage, by the way. It takes great courage to go on that outer quest. The inner quest, sorry. The outer quest is almost easy. In fact, it is easier to put on your backpack and walk every day. That's easy. But to actually look inwards and see how you can walk even lighter in life, that takes great courage to look inwards. But here's the good news for you. You have that courage. You're pilgrims. Did you know that the Camino Frances specifically, is called the Way of the Sword? The Way of the Sword. It's the place where you go battle your fears, and it's the place where you find your courage. So you already have the courage that you need to be able to go on that inner quest to find what it is that can help you walk lighter in life. And I think the greatest courage that we need is the courage to honor our truth, the courage to honor who we are, the courage to pursue whatever it is in our lives that makes us feel fulfilled, that gives our lives meaning, even when, and especially when, nobody else understands it or supports it. I feel this is probably the most important journey that we're on. You know, there's a wonderful phrase from the academic and author, his name is David Orr, and he has this phrase which I love, which says that the plain fact is that the planet does not need more successful people, but it does desperately need more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of every kind. It needs people who live well in their places. And I love that because I feel this is really what the soul longs for. It longs for this freedom to be fully what it is in this world, to fully express itself in this world. And when you're on pilgrimage, you get a taste of that freedom. You get a taste of what it's like to fully live authentically and fully as you are. Which sounds great, but then the corollary to that is that there are going to be those people in your life that no matter how you try to convince or how you try to appeal to, they simply are not going to support you in what it is that you want to do in your life, to live fully, to live authentically. They will try in their own way to put you inside their definition of how they want you to be and how they see you. And it's in moments like those where we need the greatest courage, which is to allow them with great love, with great peace, with great acceptance, to allow them to walk their path while we walk ours, even if that means we have to walk alone. But that's okay. We're all pilgrims here. We've all walked alone, right? Walking alone is a part of knowing how to walk in life. And just like on the Camino, I'm sure that you met some interesting people when you were walking alone, or you had some interesting experience that you could not have had when you were walking with another. Then this too is what will happen in your life, your everyday pilgrimage. That is your life, your ability to expand beyond where you are into other places and other people. In my everyday, I actually try to live as a pilgrim every day in my everyday life. So, for example, if I'm on the elevator, I will walk onto the elevator and I will look at people and I will say good morning. It may seem like such a silly little thing, but on the Camino, I was saying buen camino to complete strangers. Why are the people here in my everyday life any different, right? If I see somebody who appears to be having a bad day, a cashier or wherever I am, I'll maybe spend a little extra time and say, hey, how you doing? Just make small talk. Find a way to bring a little bit of that spirit of camaraderie and helping one another to another person. Where it's most affected my life personally is, and in trying to integrate this Camino in my everyday, is that when I see a homeless person, for example, or somebody who's asking for money on the streets, whereas before I would judge and just continue onwards, now I'm more apt to simply stop and ask this person what they need. I may or may not give them money, but I will look at them. I will look them in the eye to acknowledge that they are here and that they are human beings. And I will speak to them about what it is that they need. I'm actually working my way up to embracing them, just standing there and giving them a hug and saying nothing. Because ultimately, I think that's what we're all looking for in this world. I think we're all looking to be seen, and we're all looking for that love. And this, to me, is ultimately what it means to be a pilgrim in this world. It's not about what it is that I can take, but how it is that I can be in service to others. It's about understanding that we are all brothers and sisters on this great pilgrimage that we all walk together, that's called life. And we all carry our burdens, and we all have our challenges, and we all have our fears that we're trying to walk through. And there are times that we struggle. There are times that the burden is maybe too heavy and we can't make it alone. You know, I was helped so many times during my pilgrimages, especially to Jerusalem. And I was made to feel that I was a welcome part of a human family, of a large human family, that I try to bring that essence of we are all one, we are all brothers and sisters into my everyday life pilgrimage. If I was so willing on the Camino to stop and help somebody else, why would I not do this here, in this Camino, in this life pilgrimage? This is what I quest with, this is what I work with when I'm here in my everyday. I'm basically more willing, if I had to sum it up, I'm more willing to open my heart. I'm more willing to lead from love in a world that maybe doesn't always appreciate it, doesn't always value it, doesn't always reward you for it, but it doesn't matter. It's not about them. It's about me trying to be that authentic person, that pilgrim in this world that I'm trying to be. And what I've seen, interestingly enough, is that when I'm willing to speak from the heart, other people feel comfortable enough to do the same thing. All of a sudden, the barriers fall down. Everything collapses, and you have the beginning of what is a communication, a dialogue that's based on simply the fact that we are two human beings having a conversation. I've seen that it only takes one person to open their heart. That's it. One person to be that seed of light in the life of another person. And each and every pilgrim here, I know it, is that seed of light. You know why? Because when you arrive in Santiago de Compostela, you are called estrellas, stars. Did you know this? I did not know this either until I finished my Camino Frances, and I ended up going back to Manjarin. Do you remember Manjarin with Tomas, the Templar, in that hobbled down? Yeah, I worked there as a hospitalera for 2 years. Two weeks. Oh, 2 years would have been something else, but I was there for 2 weeks. And when I came back to Manjarin, Tomas was there and he looked at me, Estrella, Estrella. And I said, well, what do you mean? And I came to understand that those who arrive in Santiago are called that because they have walked the courage. They have walked the path with courage. They have faced their fears, and they have laid down their fears like a cloak that no longer serves them. They stand before the world filled with light, filled with love, and they are there to bring that out into the world. Now, many people think that that love and that light is only on the Camino. It's only there. The Camino is there to help you realize that, to fill yourself with that, to become so abundantly filled with it that when you come back here, it just naturally spills out in loving service to others in the world around you. Now, this is what it means to me to be integrating your Camino experience and what it means to be a pilgrim in your everyday pilgrimage called life. Now, that's all I'm going to say for now. I have much more I can say. But I would like to give all of you here the opportunity to also share, because in sharing and in speaking about our experiences and how we're able to live our Caminos and to integrate their lessons into our everyday lives, I feel the more that we will all benefit. So I'm going to stop speaking, and I'm going to offer whoever wants to be the first person to share with the rest of us how you are able to integrate your experience and what's working for you. And I'll move this out of the way. Has anyone here had a difficult relationship, someone in their lives who simply will not share in their enthusiasm for the pilgrimage, someone who simply won't listen, will just simply cut you off or make light of it or just make sarcastic remarks. I've had all of those, by the way. That's why I'm speaking from that place. Has anybody here had that experience that they would like to speak about? Yes.
Well, I don't want people to love it. I really appreciate what you said about when you come home and you talk to people and within 5 minutes their eyes are glazed over and they might be looking at their watch. You can tell that you know how to capture their attention. But there's a part of you that's longing to just be talking about it. And so that's what I really appreciate about this group is that and the fact that I walked with my husband is that I do have people that I can share that longing.
Yeah. Anybody else have that experience? Of those people who just glaze over? Yeah? That nobody wants to look? Yeah.
I find that if you serve Spanish wine and tapas,
If you serve Spanish wine and tapas,
maybe more than 5 minutes.
that's actually a great idea. That's a wonderful idea. I hadn't heard that before. Have some Spanish wine, some Spanish tapas, and then get them kind of indoctrinated into the Spanish way, and then you can start talking a little bit. Yeah. Have you found that helps them?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Another 5 minutes, like
Another 5 minutes, get them a little bit loosened up with some wine, and they're good. Okay. Yeah. How have you, yes, please go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, also, I felt our church put out a call for people to work at a refugee committee to bring Syrian families in, and I really wanted to join that, and I have, and we're working on bringing the families that should be here. But I just think because you've been in that experience in another country, and they've been so welcoming,
Yes.
yeah, that kind of translated to me how I can work here with that same attitude.
Yeah, yeah. The attitude of how can I take what I have been given and also be able to share it with others. Yeah, I think that's great. That's a great way to do it. Mm-hmm. How do you make peace with those who won't come along, who simply won't? We know we can't change them, right? We know we can't make them change. And it may not be so easy to be able to walk away. So how do we do that? The work of inner peace is never easy, by the way. My experience has been that it's always easier to look outside and look at, they're so closed-minded. They're so closed-minded. They're not willing to do, they're not willing to listen. And why are they that way? Why won't they change? And looking outwards to try and understand what essentially is a feeling of being hurt, right? We're hurt, of course. I'll tell you from my own experience. I was hurt when my family didn't want to talk to me about my pilgrimages. I was hurt when they didn't want to really dive in with me. The book that you mentioned, I gave them all a copy of the book. They all love the book. But nobody sat down with me and said, hey, let's, what was this experience all about? And, was there other people like that? Nobody. Now, I love my family, by the way. This is not a judgment on them. But it came back to me. I'm looking to them for this validation. It's almost like you're looking to them for this approval. So the bigger question for me was, well, why do I need their approval? Right? What am I seeking from them that I think they can give me and that I don't have within me myself? And that's a much harder question to answer, I found. It's a much harder quest to look inside of yourself. It's like, well, why do I need their approval? So they don't understand it. They're not interested. They don't seem to care really enough to engage with me. So why do I need to have their approval? And it's hardest from our families, by the way. It's hardest from those who are closest to us, the ones whose opinions really matter to us, our partners, our children, all that. We want them to feel this enthusiasm with us, and we above all else, want to feel that in a way they approve of us. They approve of our choices. They respect our choices, even when they don't understand them. And it's very hard when they don't. Anybody relate? Am I going to be standing up here talking for the next half hour? I don't want to be doing that. I can, but I would rather that we all try and, yeah.
Well, I guess for me, I've experienced, I think we all have, that you've had this wonderful pilgrimage and that others can't sort of relate to it. But I also think about the times that others have done other things that were not in my wheelhouse.
Okay.
And how I probably came off the same way. My husband goes to a big hockey game. And it's like, oh, that was really nice. Okay. Like, I can't relate.
Right.
And so I think of the group that I walked with. There were 6 of us, the Saskatoon 6, so some of us are here.
Nice name.
And most of us had a spouse that stayed home. And so there were 3 men and 3 women, and we were all, varied backgrounds. We had joined a weekly walking group that we usually walked together, but essentially we were acquaintances. We weren't close friends when we left. But I found it interesting that even though we had partners or spouses, they supported us in that, we had a potluck, everybody got to meet each other before we left, but our spouses didn't do this for a particular reason, right? It's not in their wheelhouse. And so my husband had a hip replacement shortly before I left. And so I don't know if he would have done it. He would have done it. I know he would have done it with me to support me, but it's not his jam. He's a CrossFitter, he's a runner, he's a hockey player, but he's not a walker. And so I guess for me, and I've recently retired and all those things, it was like, it's okay for us to be separate. It was okay for me to have this interest and for him to support me in this interest. And he has his interest, but there's times that of course we come together and it's fine. But when I came home, we have a very busy family life, and when I came home, the wheels were turning. And it was up to me to kind of get on that conveyor belt and to keep up with everybody. And very few people had time to say, oh, how was your trip? Oh, well, they could say, how was your trip? And it was good, and that was enough. But or that walk that you did and all that.
Yes, that walk.
But what I did was I made a photo book. And so now this photo book is making its way one by one sort of around my circle of people. And I find it really interesting because I have given them the time and the space to look at this book at their own speed. I'm not there when they're looking at it, but then we always have this moment of coming together and, I have a question now. Like, what was that plug? Or what was this? Or why did you do that? Or all those little things. And so I feel like I've given people the space, if they're interested, here's who wants the book next kind of thing, and they'll take it for a few days and bring it back. And I see that it is tweaking their interest, even though it might not be in their wheelhouse to go walking 800 kilometers. They see it in a different light because it's not me trying to tell them about it, and I never could put into words the experience for myself. Anyway, but I think when I listen to you talk, it makes me, first of all, think of the times I have done this to others. And I consider myself a good listener, right? But still there's that element of, I don't get why you're interested in doing that. Why on earth would you walk 800 kilometers? Before I left, I had people say, well, why are you doing that over there? Why don't you just walk to Winnipeg?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, it just wasn't quite the same thing. Yeah. So it's not just the walk. And people would say, well, like, are you religious? Did you do it? And I said, well, I'm not Catholic, but there was big spiritual element in it for me. So I don't know how to find words to sort of share that with people, but I also feel like I don't want to force it. I'm never the person that would, well, I want you to listen to me now. But I found letting people have my book and to see the pictures and walk the walk in, metaphorically with me, it sort of changes their perspective, or it gives them an understanding of what we did.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love that idea of taking all of your pictures and putting them in a format that allows people to, on their own time, digest it. Because if there is even an inkling of an interest, they're going to say yes to the book, right? Yeah. But I like the fact that you're not saying, well, let me tell you all about it, and then feeling the rejection. Because as soon as you say, I want to, let me tell you, whoa, they don't want to talk, and then there comes that immediate sense of rejection. And I like that. I like that very much, that they, on their own time, digest the photos on their own time. They're able to kind of see and perhaps be intrigued enough to say, tell me more about that.
And I did a little bit of writing. I sort of kept a journal on my phone as we walked every day, and so it served me when I was putting this book together, so I could remember where we were and a few highlights. And I just wrote enough that it will jog my memory, and enough, you can't write everything that you'd like to write, but so there's, kind of helps them to understand the journey.
I think that's a very valuable thing that you're doing, and I'm sure as they on their own time kind of come to you slowly, you're able to then in your own way explain the significance and what it means to you, and perhaps that will spark a deeper conversation and a connection between you. That's great. Have you seen a difference with the people that you've given it to?
Well, for example, I just gave it to my daughter last night, and we came back in October.
Okay.
And so, she'd say, well, Mom, I haven't even seen your book yet. But, she's a busy young woman with 2 little kids and a new job and the whole life that, and so I appreciate that. But she did take it last night. It was her turn to get it. And so I'm curious to see what she said. But
okay. I like that. I like that idea very much. That's a way of doing it, rather than going out and trying to not impose ourselves, but wanting, because in our enthusiasm we want to share it, right? We want to tell them how it's what's happened to us, and they're simply perhaps not ready to hear it. But if you give it to them in this way, that's a great way to be able to let them slowly come to you. That's excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I guess I did it a little differently. I took a lot of videos in the last walk that I did, and so for the very first time, I was a rookie at it, I did a YouTube video. And so when people ask me that, they can watch this YouTube video on their own in their own time, so I don't have to say, here, I want to tell you about my Camino, right? When you feel you have 26 minutes, a little long, but when you feel you have the time, just go to the YouTube and watch. You don't even it's just at your time. So I did just a little bit differently.
Yeah, I like both have that similar thread, that similar theme of, well, I'm not, here's something that maybe can spark your interest, and here's something that might explain it a little bit, but that opens the door. That opens the door for them to come to you. Having videos is a great idea. So you were uploading videos as you were walking, is that it?
No, I just took videos on my camera, and when I got home, I put it all together into a YouTube video. Okay,
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. That's another great way to get people to kind of be more understanding kind of, what it is that sparks this. And because I think that's the hardest question for people to answer, and I've got the same thing. Why in the world would you want to go across the ocean to a place where we've got 5,000 kilometers of trails here in Canada? Yeah. People come here to come hiking. Why would you want to go there?
Because we don't have wine at the end of the day.
We don't have wine at the end of the day, which is cheaper than water.
Yes, exactly.
Good point. Good point. I think that brings probably the hardest thing for pilgrims to talk about, which you touched on a little bit, which is that spiritual dimension. Because if it was just all about hiking, like I said, we've got all the hiking trails in the world here. So what is it that would make you want to go across the ocean to a different country where you don't speak the language, walk a medieval, older than that, path to get to a cathedral where they say there are the remains of a saint? That's a very different kind of feeling to it. That's a very different calling that's taking you to do that than rather go hiking in many of the beautiful trails that are here. And those are probably the hardest things to enunciate, even to yourself, to understand that calling, and harder still to share with other people, whether religious or not. It doesn't matter. We all have, the range of beliefs that fit in there. But I feel that calling is universal. That calling to kind of connect with something that is beyond the realm of the physical is a universal calling. I was reading something. It was a statistic from the United Nations that said that 1 out of every 3 tourists around the world is a pilgrim. And we're talking about pilgrimages around the world. We think in the context of the Camino. But if you look at pilgrimages in India along the Ganges, you look at pilgrimages in Tokyo, the 88 temples walk. If you look at Mecca as a pilgrimage, if you look at the Guadalupe in Mexico, there's this calling to go on this experience, this desire to connect, maybe it's like almost to transcend what is here beyond our everyday lives and the worries and the routines and all of that. And even if it's for an instant, just to glimpse or touch something that is beyond here. And that's a very hard thing to define, and a very hard thing to really explain to other people. But in your heart, you know what it is.
I think that the word pilgrim is really key to that, because I remember the first time I walked a Camino, the word pilgrim didn't sit lightly with me. I mean, it's a very unfamiliar word to us, and it's not the way we would define ourselves. And when you say you don't even say that you're going to be a pilgrim. You say you're going to walk the Camino de Santiago. And the word pilgrim is kind of a cruise to you, but bit by bit. We start eating pilgrims menus, and we start being called pilgrims by other people, and you kind of live into this notion of being a pilgrim, and you start to think, well, so what does that mean? And it is different from a hike. So I think that because we use pilgrim mostly when we use it in a metaphorical sense, it's pilgrim's progress, or it's something like that, and so then you start to think, like, okay, so if I'm a pilgrim on this route, then I'm also a pilgrim on my life's journey. How do those things relate to?
That's a great point, and it's a point that I can especially relate to, because I would not call myself a pilgrim. On the Camino, I didn't call myself a pilgrim, and when we were walking to Jerusalem, I would not call myself a pilgrim. And one of the arguments Alberto and I had was, he would say to me, "You're so two-faced." He goes, to the world, you show." His insult was, "You're marketing Mony, with a smile, and everything is all great. But when it's just you and I talking, you're willing to reveal your heart, and you're willing to reveal that you are a pilgrim at heart. You are somebody who is willing to surrender a lot of stuff and trust that everything is going to be okay. You're somebody who's willing to ask the hard questions of their life. You're willing to explore what spirituality means to you, even if you have no idea what it means. That's a pilgrim." And he goes, "So with me, you're able to do it one-on-one, and but then in the world, you're so two-faced." And I would not mention that I was a pilgrim or that I was on a pilgrimage, because of all that's associated with it. There's a lot of baggage, with that. Especially when you say, "I'm walking from Rome to Jerusalem." So they think, "Oh, so you're a religious pilgrim." Nothing wrong with that. So you're religious, and you're Catholic on top of that, and you're Christian on top of that, which I wasn't. So, so all of that heaviness that comes with being perceived in one way, and allowing that opinion to really matter to you. It mattered to me how people perceived me, but that's part of a bigger narrative that I had to deal with within myself. Why does it matter what people think of me, and the fact that I want to call myself a pilgrim in this world? Why should that matter? Why should their opinion of me influence me the way that it does? That's not their work, that's my work, to stand in confidence of who I am and what I believe, and to share that. That's not theirs. That's not their inner work, that's fully mine. They're there to help me see it, and they're helping me see it very clearly. But you see your fears, right? That was one of my fears, to be misunderstood, pilgrim, oh, religious, oh, all of that. What does it matter? What matters, what matters. Now I understand it. I didn't know it back then. I needed the journey to kind of unravel all of that, was to say, you know what, I need to stand confidently in who I am and what I believe, and have the confidence to speak truthfully in every moment. Not have one face for the media, one face for pilgrims, one face for my family, authentically, fully who you are. And pilgrimage gives you the chance to kind of get to that. Yes, ma'am.
Before I did the Camino, I read this book, The Art of Pilgrimage.
The Art of Pilgrimage.
And they made a distinction between a tourist and a pilgrim by saying that the tourist walks through a place, and the place is forever changed. The pilgrim walks through a place, and the pilgrim is forever changed.
That's nice. So I'm going to repeat that. The tourist walks through the place,
And
the place is forever changed. And a pilgrim walks through a place, and the pilgrim is forever changed. Nice way of describing it.
I started off the pilgrimage doing a walk, and it was a tour, and it was billed as a walk. And we had this bus that would take us, to our starting point, and we would walk maybe 20K, and then we'd be picked up. We would be served lunch. They would arrange a lunch in a beautiful picnic spot, and we would be wined and dined and placed in sleeping in a 5-star accommodation, fed well, etc. And I would see these pilgrims out on the trail with their backpacks, and I thought I longed to be out there. And the reason I took the tour to start with is that I didn't have the courage to do it by myself, and I didn't have anybody that was able to go with me. So at the start, when we started at Saint Jean here, they said, we're not pilgrims. And so we didn't get a pilgrim passport.
Because you were on a bus, they said you're not pilgrims. Well, you were walking.
The tour leader said, we're not pilgrims, we are walkers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because that's what it was billed as, a walk.
I see.
And I thought, no, I'm a pilgrim. So I bought a pilgrim's pass.
Okay.
And I thought, there's a difference in attitude here. And our leaders tended to, poo-poo these poor pilgrims, they're sleeping and getting lice and bits.
Yeah. Not common, by the way. That's not common.
Picture.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't care.
Yeah.
I want to be a pilgrim. So when we finished the tour, I transported myself back up the trail, 125K, and did it by myself. And I'm diligently packing my backpack so that, I could carry it, etc. Thinking about what I'm going to need and what I'm not going to need. And Nun had said to me, make sure travel light so that there's room in your backpack for the angels.
Oh, I love it. Make sure you travel light so that there's room in your backpack for angels.
For the angels.
Love it.
Anyway, I then got myself all ready, and with a great deal of anxiety, I get delivered at spot 10, or 125K up the trail. And that was my pilgrimage. The tour and the walk was my preparation. And there was quite a distinction. Like the walk was fine. I loved it. Whatever. But it wasn't touching my soul.
Yeah.
And this Spartan, the pilgrimages, the shelters, first time it was quite a rude awakening. When I had this in the morning, I'm getting ready and I'm on the lower bunk, and all of a sudden, legs kind of flying over almost in my face, and that kind of thing. Had I not done this by myself, I wouldn't have discovered how the universe provides. I would almost, I would all of a sudden become aware of a need, and before I had a chance to worry about it, the universe provided. It was just phenomenal.
The universe provides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, I had all sorts of fabulous. But for me, I did the pilgrimage for myself. I had no need for anybody else to understand or to share or to appreciate what I did. And this was for me. so it's no big deal if somebody doesn't want to hear.
That's
that.
great. That's great. You know, I'm glad you brought up that point of going on buses and the walking, because obviously there are, I'm sure you've heard the term touragrinos. You're a tourist peregrino, you're not really a full tourist and you're not really a pilgrim. And there are a lot of judgments and a lot of ideas around what makes a pilgrim, a true authentic pilgrim, right? And what makes a completely, that's not a pilgrim, that's a tourist or a touragrino. And have you heard of this? Mm-hmm. Have you heard these expectations and these ideas? And it's interesting. It's interesting how that's defined, because in your example, in your case, for example, the fact of being on the bus and what started out as maybe just another walk inspired something deeper inside of you to go and take your backpack and go back and then walk it in a different way. But had you not gone on that bus in the first place, on that tour, what would be considered just a hike, you wouldn't have been exposed to that opportunity.
No, it wasn't. I started off with a desire to be a pilgrim
Oh,
in
I
my
see.
sense of being vulnerable.
Yes.
And carrying everything on my back and, meeting with the people. That, I started off with that, but I didn't have anybody to accompany me.
Okay.
So I signed up for the tour.
I see.
But, like I said, I had a different attitude. I knew I was a pilgrim. There was a difference of attitude. And
Yes.
people can do pilgrimages all sorts of ways, for sure. They can ride on buses. It's an attitude, and the mindset that people take.
Completely. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Okay. Do I need to wrap it up? Yeah, is that it? Okay. Does somebody else have another comment to make before? Yeah. I'm sure over coffee, we can definitely, over what's coming. That's delicious looking brunch, which I will share with you happily. We'd be more than happy to continue.
Boy, thank you so much for sharing your journey. We all find it easy to find information on how to prepare for the outward journey, the walking, the backpacking, and the shoes, but it's that preparation for the inner journey before we go, the unpacking of our experience after we're back, and so we thank you for your insight on that. I've often read that our true pilgrimage journey doesn't really begin until our walking is done. So,
Indeed.
that's my experience. So I thank you again.
Thank you, Edith.